and welcome to Level Up Your English with Kathleen Elise. I'm Kathleen, your host for the day. So before we get started and talking about our topic, just be sure to subscribe and set the notification button so that you don't miss any episodes. Here we go. Hi. Okay. Hello, it's Kathleen at Level Up Your English with Kathleen Elise. I apologize for the delay. I was 10 minutes early. I was all set to go. And then sipping my coffee, I pressed one little button just to make sure I had everything. And it undid everything I just did. So little bit of few issues here, but we made it through. So hello and welcome to Level Up Your English with Kathleen Elise. So today we're going to talk about some of the things that can get in the way of true fluency. So many students feel that all I have to do is learn my grammar, learn my vocabulary, and maybe a few other things, make sure I can pronounce the words correctly, know how to say the words, and how to put them together at a high level, and then that means that I'm fluent. When in fact, that's a huge part of it. Absolutely, that's a huge part of it. But there are some key elements that just about every language student misses, especially English language students. So we're going to go over some of those today. So there are two issues that could be applicable to you that you may not realize, and they're definitely worth checking out. And then the other key areas of fluency that I'm going to go over are things that people generally don't think about at all. So let's just say, you've got a high level of vocabulary, you've got a broad vocabulary, you use your English a lot, you're comfortable speaking it, and people can pretty much understand you, and you can have conversations, etc. So why does that mean that? Why could it be that you're not really considered fluent, or that you feel as though you're having trouble with your fluency? Well, the first thing is that your pronunciation may not be as good as you think it is. So, for example, many of my students, and I've spoken about this in different areas several times because it is an ongoing issue with students of English, and that is that there's a few aspects of this one area. So you might know how to say the word, but your pronunciation, the mechanics of how you're pronouncing the word might need some fixing, might need some tweaking. For many students of English, they tend to use the mouth mechanics of their native language. So a lot of my Spanish students, for instance, when they say words with R's in them, even though they have a similar sound, it's similar, but it's not the right sound. And they keep using their Spanish sound in English words. So, for example, I have one student who continually rolls his R's when speaking English, and he's so excited to be speaking English that he can't hear me when I try to help him correct that and help him think with the English R instead of the Spanish R. So he continually makes the same error. So he knows how to say the word great, but he says it with the Spanish R. So, and I'm not very good at this, but it comes out as great, great. So, because and then I'm trying to think of other words. So, or grapefruit, or if he had, or grip, things like that. So he's constantly rolling his R's. And if you're speaking quickly, and if you have several R's in your sentence, which you're going to have, English, R is a very common letter that's used in many, many words. And so not only is it okay, so if you say great once, or with a bit of a space, your people are going to understand you. But if you have a lot of R's in there, and you keep rolling them, you're slowing yourself down. You're slowing your transitions down, and they're going to kind of blur into, your words are going to blur, because another misconception that people have when they're learning a new language is that if I speak it quickly, that means I'm fluent. So many of my students, they want to just speak fast and as many words as they can, but by speaking fast and by using the mouth mechanics of your native language, you're actually, this is where an accent comes in. This is why people say, oh, that person has a foreign accent. It's not that, it is a foreign accent because you're trying to make sounds from one language using the mouth structure and formation of your other language, your native language. So it is a foreign accent, and that's where it comes from. And so you really want to make sure that you're pronouncing your words correctly, and that, again, I'm going to say this a million times over, you want to be thinking in English. So my student who loves to use his Spanish R's, he really needs to remember, wait, I'm speaking English. That's not the English R sound. So if this is a problem for you, take yourself back to kindergarten and really spend time practicing the English sounds formed with your English mouth mechanics. So, if you have trouble or if you have trouble with your R's like that, really take some time and practice words. Find any word you can. Make a list of words that have R's in them. Pay attention, just as you're talking during the day, or if you see an email, kind of pay attention to how many R's there are and write those words down, and then go through and practice them. I'm going to be putting up videos on how to correctly form the sounds of English. So come back here and keep checking in, because I will be putting those up. But take your time. Spend the time and practice. Forget about the fact that you have to start from the beginning. You're correcting, you're making your foundation solid, because right now the foundation that you've built your fluency on is wobbly. It has holes in it. So you want to go back, fill in those holes, and fill them in a way that they're not gonna pop through again, or cause cracks or anything in the foundation of your English fluency. So there's one thing. And actually, a quick thing, part of that is that your teacher might be saying that you're pronouncing it correctly, but just pay attention. And I've written a blog post, I think, or a podcast, I'm not sure which one it was, but on how to know when it's time to move from a non-native speaking English teacher to a native English speaking English teacher. Because again, your non-native teacher may have been taught incorrectly. So your non-native teacher might have excelled in the programs that he or she went through, but they may not have been taught properly, correctly, or completely. And I know this because I have students who are English teachers in their native languages. But, I had one student say to me, Kathleen, in all my years of schooling, she was getting her master's degree now in teaching English in her country. And she says, in all my years, I've never been taught this. So that could be an issue too. Start first with, just learning how to pronounce the sounds and then deal with that other thing later. Just know that it could be an issue. It might not be, but it could be an issue. The second thing that might be holding you back with your fluency in English is you've learned all these rules. People panic over learning the rules, the grammar, English grammar, and they hear rules, they think it has to stick and be rigid, and I can't move beyond it. And so you end up speaking in a very unnatural, unnative manner. And so that could be a part of your fluency. So think of the word fluency and think about what it means. So fluency means the ability to, this is not the dictionary definition, I can get that for you, but just real life understanding of what fluency is. So you're considered fluent when you are able to have a fluid, easily moving conversation with someone, that you are able to communicate with someone in their language seamlessly, smoothly, effortlessly. So think fluency, fluidity. So if you haven't achieved that fluidity of communication, then you're not really fluent in the language. You're proficient in the language, which is a good thing and it's necessary. So what I'm here to help you do, and this is what the last Level Up Your English was about, is that I'm here as an advanced English fluency coach to advance your proficiency and transform it into true fluency. So that's the second thing. So, and when I say you might be too rigid, you could be using your culture, your native language might be a very formal language, and you might constantly show a lot of respect to the people that you're speaking with, and that may be a big deal in your native culture and therefore in your native language. So in American English, certainly, I believe in British English as well, but they we are in America, in the United States of America, we are rather informal people. Our culture started where, we came over here from England, from various places in Europe, and we didn't have a hierarchy. We didn't have any government at the time. We were just focused on surviving. So everybody had to help everybody else, whether you were a governor or a political leader or part of a monarchy, a hierarchical system from where you came from. When you came here, everybody was treated the same, and everybody had to help everybody out. You didn't have your servants with you to help you, plant the vegetables or the food or go fishing or survive or take care of the sick. You didn't have all of that with you. You had to build your own shelter, etc. So everybody chipped in, and so that is that is an innate part of our culture, even though we may be getting away from it. Deep down inside, people from the United States of America are inherently giving and caring and helping and considerate. Again, culture changes, things shift away, but again, deep down inside, that's at our core. So when we deal with people, we're much less formal, and everybody is like, oh, come on over, come to dinner, let's go have lunch, let's have coffee. There's not all of the honorific language, etc., that many other cultures have. So you have to get used to that. I'm sorry, that was a long tangent, but I think it's an important one. So in order to help you with the fluidity of communicating with other people, if you feel as though you're not communicating well, or you're confused about why, take a look at how rigid you may be. If you're not too rigid, well, we can find another reason. We can work together and help you figure that out. But that tends to be a big issue that I see with my students. So take a look at how you are reacting. Are you interacting, I should say? Are you interacting on a highly formal level? Are you afraid to make a mistake, and so you're so completely following the rules of the language that you're missing out on the way that people around you are actually using the language? Those are things that can hold you back. So when looking at these two main issues, what I think you're going to find is that you're missing several of what I call the 4 pillars of 360-degree fluency in English. So the first pillar is speaking English. And when I say speaking English, there's more involved than just saying the words. There's more involved than just putting the words together. There's rhythm and intonation and stress levels. And by stress, it's I'm going to have to find a different word from stress, because there's enough stress in learning English. So I'll find a different word. But the and I just had it and it just went away from me. Where you highlight which syllable you highlight, which sound in the word you highlight, which word within the sentence you highlight. We'll use that word instead of stress. So for example, you have the word I'm going to spell it for you. Content. Okay. So that word, you look at it and you're going to say it a certain way. What happens is if you highlight one syllable versus another syllable, then you're saying a completely different word. So for example, if you say content and put the highlight on the second syllable, content, then that means that you're satisfied. You're happy with the situation as it is, and you're satisfied with it. You're content. Whereas if you highlight the first syllable, content, then you have a completely different word. I'm producing content for you right now. So it can be used in a couple of different ways. Content meaning stories or articles or things that you put out on social media. Think of it as a cup. I'm sorry, you can't see me. Think of it as a cup in which you are placing things. So you're filling the cup. That is the contents of the cup. So social media is the cup. I'm trying to think of what else. Content. Well, it will come to me. But you get the idea. So you have two completely different words just by how you highlight the sounds within the word. So that's a thing. That's something we need to work with you on when we talk about speaking English. There's also learning about, so many cultures, and I did not know this until recently, many cultures do not have, in their four languages, do not have the concept of nuance. And nuance is sort of shading of a color. And in this case, when you're talking about a language, you're talking about the word has a meaning, a definition, and nuance means that you have another word that's similar in definition, but it has a slightly different color, a slightly different meaning, a slightly different angle or point of view with which the word is viewing the world and therefore describing the world. And some words have a list of synonyms that they're very similar in meaning. But if you look at your dictionary, and I'm sorry, I didn't put together a sample for you right now, but if you look at your dictionary, you're going to have a bunch of definitions. Well, take a look at those definitions and see how they're just a little bit different. And under the definition, you're going to have synonyms. Well, take a minute or a few and look up the definition of each of those synonyms and see how it can actually, oh, but that word means something closer to what I was trying to say. So let me look that one up and let's try using that one. Well, that one might have synonyms as well. And maybe one of those synonyms is even a better fit to the message that you're trying to say. So in English, we have so many words to convey a similar message, but all of those words have a slightly different angle to them. And so you might start out, I love doing that exercise. I find a word that I use the best one I can think of at the time. I don't stress about it. I just, when I'm writing, I will, even when I'm talking, you can see me thinking a lot of times. I'm thinking of the best word that I can use at the time. So I love looking up the words in the dictionary because then it's kind of like, think of your speaking English as painting. And the same goes for writing as well, which is the second pillar: speaking English, writing English, business English, and social English. I realize I didn't get to that yet. So you have those four pillars. So you can see how much is actually involved in fluency just by how long I've been talking about speaking English. Okay. And I could go on talking all day just about speaking English. So really think about the words that you're using. Really think about your fluency right now. So, okay, speaking English, you get that. There's a lot of words that really have they fill in different gaps. They look at the same thing from a different point of view, and therefore adds a little something. It adds depth and texture and meaning to the message that you're trying to say. So speaking English, the same thing for writing English. It's not just knowing how to, use your commas and periods and quotation marks and capital letters. It's so much more than that. It's more than just knowing how to use the symbols that we call letters in a certain combination to represent a certain sound, So all of these words that I'm saying, the word, it has certain symbols that we call our alphabet that when you put in a certain order, represent that sound word on paper. Okay. Or a tree, carve it into a tree or whatever it is in writing. So writing is more than just getting the sound representations down on paper. Writing is about taking what's in your heart, what's in your mind, what's in your gut feelings, your humanness, and putting it down in a way that completely, as much as you possibly can, expresses all of that depth of your humanity on paper, so that someone centuries from now, as long as that paper is still intact, someone centuries from now is going to know exactly how you felt. And maybe they're going to be feeling that same thing, and they're going to be able to say, this person knows what I'm talking about. This person, look at how they handled it. I should try that. Maybe that will help me too. That blows my mind. And so there's so much more to writing than just putting symbols on a page in a certain order to say a certain thing. There you go, writing. Business English, business in any language, in any culture, is a big deal. It's a whole section unto itself. It's an entire culture that you really need to know how to navigate if you're ever going to be able to be successful in that aspect of this other culture. It happens to be English. So, and different English speaking cultures and countries handle business differently. So Americans do business differently than people from the United Kingdom, and or the British Isles, will say, and it could easily be that people in England do business differently than people in Scotland and in various parts of Ireland, and people in Australia might do business differently than us, and Canada does business differently as well. So just because the person that you're doing business with speaks English doesn't mean that they're going to all do business the same. So you have to be able to understand that. And again, the understanding the development of the culture, the business culture. How is it? Why is it that Americans do business a certain way? Why is it that the British do business a certain way, or Australians or Canadians? Why? Well, that's all part of being fluent and being able to communicate fluidly within the language. So, and then finally, social English. Social English, again, people deal differently, they interact differently, they communicate differently when it's when it's a social interaction versus a business interaction. So, and the levels of social interaction, or the type of social interaction, also has its own little culture. So if you go to a formal event, that is a different social culture than, say just a cocktail party, or meeting friends for drinks, or having pizza with your friend watching movies. They all have their own ways that they develop, their own cultures, their own ways of communicating. And again, I'm here to help you become fluid and fluent in that type of communication. So we'll be going over, we've got a lifetime ahead of us, so we have a lot to talk about. And so I'll be covering different aspects of each of these. But today was really just about letting you know that you're doing well. It's not, if you're struggling, if you find that you feel stuck in your ability in your fluency level, or your ability to communicate more comfortably in English, then I really encourage you to take a look at these different areas, because they're all affected, or they all affect your your fluency level. So again, you just going to recap here. So you might be struggling because of your pronunciation. It might not be as awesome as you think it is, and you might just need some help in tweaking a little things. I love that word. I don't know. Tweaking, fixing it, adjusting it, showing you, just correcting any errors that you might have picked up along the way. And the second thing is that you just might be too rigid in the way you communicate, and so you're not as fluent as you'd like to be. And then finally, you could be missing many of the 4 pillars: the speaking English, the writing English, business English, and social English. So there's a lot to consider here. And it sounds daunting. It sounds like it's oh my goodness, I'm never going to learn this. I'm never going to be fluent in English, but that's not true. And it's so much easier than you realize. And that's what we'll be talking about in the future. So next week, I'm just looking at my notes, we're going to be talking about some things to consider that affect your pronunciation. So next week is all about helping you with pronunciation issues. So in the chat, let me know if there are particular sounds that you have trouble in, particular words that you have trouble with, or if you have trouble going from one word to another word, that transitional time. Ask me your questions, throw them in the comments, and we'll take care of all your questions. That's what these lives are for. These lives are so that you can get FaceTime with me and real actual one-on-one time with me once a week at noon on Mondays. So I hope you had a great day today. Let me know also in the comments what you took from this. Did you learn anything that you didn't know? And what was the most surprising thing that you learned from this today? And anything else you want to say, let me know. Talk to me. That's what we're here for. So, all right. Don't forget to subscribe and to hit the notification bell so that you'll know when I'm going live. Because sometimes I do have some special lives planned, and sometimes there just might be something that I just need to say. So anyway, glad you could come today. See you soon. Bye-bye. We'll see you next.